I'm Mark Wonnacott, also known as Candle. I've got a background in like software and video game stuff, but these days I'm spending most of my time making digital creative tools. Some of them are casual creators, I think, but some of them, I'm not sure if they really fall into that, but they should be interesting anyway. And I'm going to show you some of them today. Okay, so this talk is just going to be a quick tour through a lot of the tools I've made and some of the tools that have inspired them, and kind of connecting that into some kind of journey of developing practice. Yeah, so I'll introduce the tool, say a little bit about what I learned from it, and conclude with some kind of present day thinking that's based on all that experience. So this starts with SFXR, which is not by me. It's a tool by Dr. Petter, created to make these kind of lo-fi sound effects to use with video games, particularly in game jams, particularly Ludum Dare. I think it's pretty widely used in Ludum Dare because it is really simple and really good at what it does. I think it's definitely a casual creator. It was later then ported to the web as AS3 SFXR by Tom Bjorn, and then further expanded in the capabilities as BFXR by Stephen Lavelle or Increpare. So where I come into it is that I found, well, I want to say I found the complexity of the tool kind of overwhelming, but that's not quite true because it is actually very easy to use. It's just that it has all these synth parameter sliders that I kind of had no idea how to use, what they were for, or really how to use them effectively. So they felt, visually they were overwhelming even though I didn't actually need to use them. The creator himself just suggests, oh, use the buttons to create random sounds and then until you get what you like. And the sliders are an optional extra if you want to get your hands dirty. So I was thinking about ways, how can I enhance the workflow I'm actually using and dedicate the interface to actually controlling this randomness instead of just dealing directly with those parameters or ignoring them as the case actually is. So I created these three kind of remix tools, remixed versions of SFXR. I was using some techniques from the literature of interactive evolutionary computation. You might recognize them if you've read up on that. Have the sweep SFXR, which is just kind of linear interpolation between two sounds, and you'd go on a kind of random walk through the sounds. Evo SFXR was about having like evolutionary generations that were mutating, and then similarly you do that sweeping to do some kind of crossover for that. And then this studio SFXR was a more experimental look at thinking about the actual workflow of, if you are using this for a game jam, you're making a number of sounds that you want to work together. So can the interface be dedicated to trying to make a family of sounds that you can kind of hear in a context of this kind of dummy video game? It's this little box at the top of that Studio FXR screenshot. Oh yeah, here we go. I have just lost the window. There we go. So I think SFXR is a simple single concept tool, and that really meant it lent itself very easily to the porting and extension that happened. So and also being embedded in other tools, for example, PuzzleScript, all the sound effects are generated through SFXR. though it's exposed just as a single random click that you choose from, but it is embedded in there. And for me, working from a base of this tool that people are already widely using was pretty reassuring, because I knew, okay, these are the people that will use it. They'll at least try my remix and see if it's any good. So that's an obvious path to actually use. Well, user testing is a grand, but actually getting people to use it. And Tom's web port meant that I was able to like put it online and just put a link in front of people and not have to convince them that it's worth downloading or anything like that. In the end, I was not really satisfied with my remixes as creativity tools because they didn't feel like you had enough control to actually feel like an author of the sounds. But that's a story for another time. And okay, sorry, the last thing I had to say there was, but despite that, people do use them and they feel like they contributed something to that lineage of SFXR tools. So that was what I got from that. Next thing up is CoolTool, which is this really long-term project, like solo project I was doing to kind of create my dream version of RPG Maker, which among a million other things it was trying to do, wanted to deal with my childhood frustration of not being able to really make my own like graphics for the RPG Maker stuff. Like it has the ability to import stuff, but then you have to start using other tools and working in the right formats and importing things and creating a huge number of things to kind of mix in with that, not like a huge number of custom assets to replace everything. So I designed it from the ground up to have the ability to edit images, music, sound, whatever directly. And I was really interested also in presenting a CoolTool project as a single page thing where you were drawing all those assets directly on the page, seeing how they look together as you drew them, and oh yeah, drawing your own notes on there and composing your music in the margins. And some of that actually happened and some of that did not get completed because in the end it was way too huge a project for me or maybe anyone to ever have completed, but it was very exciting to work on it all the same. Like I was extremely motivated to keep doing this even if it didn't really go anywhere. So I guess maybe it was casual creation in and of itself. I mean, so I written here that it acted as a locus for my practice, which I guess I just mean it was a playground for me to play around with tool making and throw some wild ideas in, go on all these deep dives to read the tool making literature and see what I can pull out of that and how I could develop it. I started using it even as like a kind of tongue-in-cheek personal brand, and I learned like a billion new skills that were useful for making it. And in the end, like many of these things, they're never really that useful, or like CoolTool itself is not actually that useful for making anything complete. But I guess people do have had fun using it, so maybe falls into the casual creator thing again. Okay, so next up is Thereabouts and Flatpak. Thereabouts is this picture at the top was this project I did for a client, Becca Rose. If you want to look her up, I'll post links later. But it was like making this touch focused. No, sorry. Making this kind of tactile, touch-based storytelling platform, I think was the idea. Whatever that was, it called for this editor so that the people who were making these stories for the platform could actually create these animated scenes. But that's just something I ended up doing. But this coincided with this kind of movement of a process of games called flat games, and the flat jam around that, which is kind of just trying, like, what would you call it? I don't know. It was just a form of games people were making where you drew some graphics on paper, you took photos, and then you assembled them into a very simple world to kind of let people run around in. And with those two things happening at the same time, I made, yeah, I was inspired to make this tool that was almost the same thing as this Thereabouts thing that I already made, but for making these flat games. So you'd use a tablet camera to photograph drawings. You cut them out on the touch screen and then use the touch controls to kind of arrange a collage of images. And what I got from doing all of that was, well, okay, first of all, I don't think I ever would have touched mobile at all unless I was getting paid to make this Thereabouts thing. So that's something. And this may be a surprise, but touch is really good for creating collages, really good interface for that. That is not a surprise. But I found developing on mobile truly, truly awful. And I didn't even have to do iOS. So a big thing that came from this is that I'm probably sticking to the web from now on. And as I mentioned before, Flatpak was so easy to make because I'd already made these two things before. Or no, I'd already made this Thereabouts thing before and had all these ideas from participating in the flat game stuff, that it was really just like shoving a couple of things together, like that touch collage interface from Thereabouts and the aesthetic of flat games, and then actually the cutting of the images out comes from the drawing code of CoolTool even. Next is Bitsy, which is, again, not made by me. It's made by a guy called Adam Ledoux. It's a web-based editor for creating little worlds and narratives, and then it exports them as a single HTML page that you can play as a game online. An interesting thing here is that it has a thriving ecosystem of these tools and hacks. And what I'm talking about is these external tools that you can use for kind of, for like generating extra stuff, like generating palettes for Bitsy or editing Bitsy fonts, or just kind of filling in any of the gaps that the Bitsy editor doesn't actually do for you. And the hacks, those are these kind of snippets of JavaScript that you can paste into your finished game, and that extends the capabilities of the engine itself. So there I'm talking about like adding, like it's a two-color thing right here, but these hacks allow you to add more colors, say, or increase the dialogue features and stuff like that. From this, I think what I took away is that Bitsy being a tool, like a web-based tool, makes it really easy to just show to someone immediately. And then being able to publish, I mean, the artifact that it creates is a single web page that's a game. It makes it so easy to publish your game instantly. Like, it's as easy as uploading a web page and then linking it to someone. I think those tools and hacks that I'm talking about were also, well, I feel like they were able to emerge for two reasons. One is that Bitsy kind of directly exposes the internal project data in a format that's really easy to kind of understand and mess around with. And the tool itself it's a web page, but it's written in this very clear, unobfuscated JavaScript that it doesn't use a build process or anything like that. You can just look in the browser and see what it's doing and start poking around, which has helped a lot of people in the Bitsy community kind of get into programming and making their own hacks, which is really cool. And what am I saying here? Yeah, the really important thing from that is that Bitsy is Bitsy, as authored by Adam Ledoux, is kind of a foundation for this wider community of game making, like these tool makers and these hack makers building around Bitsy. And that practice of game making doesn't depend on Adam at all. Like he could stop developing Bitsy right now and people could still keep going and still keep improving the tool themselves. Okay, a quick aside, I made a lot of things around the Bitsy games that people are making. Just check the chat. No, I won't. Sorry. Yeah, I've made a lot of things around this, picking up all the game data of games that people are making in Bitsy. Like this, because it's so readily exposed, it's very easy to just pull it out of a game web page and collate it all. So I have like this collage of all the player characters in the games, this kind of arcade machine that's reinterpreting the project data and allowing people to play it on location at games events. A screensaver that's just kind of visualizing all the graphics that people have authored for Bitsy Games. And I consider these tools as tools for kind of enhancing the impact and reach of Bitsy Games, and kind of making the development of Bitsy Games feel like it's more than just solo publishing a game, but also contributing to like a body of Bitsy work. Okay, okay. I think I'm running behind time quite a lot, but I'll keep going. Another aside is Flick Game by Stephen Lavelle Increpare, which is just this cool game editor for making like these pixel art scenes. You click on one of the colors in the scenes, it takes you to another scene. That's it, and it's very cool. Flixy is a remake, kind of remix of that I wanted to make to learn how to do web tools. And again, it's built on everything that comes before it. It's just a collage of images like in Thereabouts of Flatpak. It's got these drawing tools that are copied from CoolTool. Uses the kind of mirror of the dialogue system from Bitsy. The biggest regret I have from it is that it uses this complicated web development build process. So every time someone has come to me trying to customize it, all I can say to them is, oh, I'll have to add that myself because it's, yeah, the code is unreadable in the browser. Last on the list of tools is Domino, which is just a kind of essay presentation tool for arranging snippets of text on the page. It exports this, again, a single web page that you can share in kind of, instead of having a PDF of something or making a blog post or something like that. The interesting thing with Domino is that I made the way it exports the artifact, like the final kind of essay that you're presenting, is that it just literally clones the web page itself. So every instance of an kind of essay or whatever that's made in Domino out there is also the full set of editor tools. So it's kind of directly supporting remixing other people's work and proliferating the tool itself. And it also has some editor for editing the CSS and the style of the page, so you can personalize it, and those personalizations carry forward in the cloning. Yeah, okay. And then near the end of making this, I started getting really wild ideas. Like if Domino can include Domino includes an editor to modify its own appearance. Could it include an editor to like insert new behaviors through JavaScript? I mean, they like just literally add it to the page source. This is almost trivial in HTML and JavaScript, so why not? And then if it had that, could it include a tool for kind of selectively picking out those modifications from other boards and pulling it into the one you're working on right now? And then if it was the self-modifying tool that's already self-replicating, and then you had this kind of pollination, like cross-pollination with other boards going on? Would it then in some sense be alive or like a living tool? Okay, so this talk has just really been like a gallery of experiences, tool making that might be useful to learn from. And if there's an overarching point to it, it's just the design and implementation of a tool can allow, facilitate, or even invite users to extend, remix, and reinvent the tool itself. And that capability allows the tool to take on a life of its own, grow beyond the limits of the creator's individual inspiration and motivation. And then the practice of communal toolmaking and a commons of tools that could emerge from that is a way, could be a way to have this kind of movement of mass art and casual creation staying sustainable outside of relying on like monolithic software development and kind of these big name tool makers. Okay, that has been a long ramble, but thank you for listening. I highly recommend checking out Emily Reed's talk on video game engines as tools for mass art, which I will link along with a lot of other things in Discord right now. Thank you.